Hello there, good evening and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV. I'm Abdullahi Ahmed. Tonight, we're unpacking a political shockwave out of Abuja amid ongoing merger talks, defections and high-stakes realignment ahead of the 2027 general elections. One resignation has stirred the waters. Dr. Hakeem Baba-Ahmed, a seasoned political figure and former spokesperson of the Northern Elders Forum, recently stepped down as special advisor on political matters to the president. And this particular development has generated quite the national debate. Since then, his media engagements have ignited fierce debate, not just over the workings of the Tinubu administration, but over his bold call for both President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar to step aside for fresh leadership in 2027. Is this patriotic courage or calculated provocation? Tonight, we go one-on-one with the man at the center of the storm, Dr. Hakeem Baba-Ahmed. Doctor, good evening and thank you so much for joining us on the program. It's good to see you this evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Right. First and foremost, let's start with one of the most obvious questions that people have been asking. Why are you giving these media interviews? What is the end game for you?
To be honest, there's no specific goal. I have some level of public presence. I held a number of sensitive positions. I spoke for one of the foremost organizations in the North. I did a lot of political work, and I remain visible. When you take up an appointment with the president and then you resign, you go away with a lot of questions. The best way is to submit yourself to the process of answering those questions. I don't want any misunderstanding. I don't want any misgivings. And I just want to put my side of the story, and hopefully that will be it.
And what do you make of the reactions from some of the things that you've said since leaving office?
Well, naturally, they will be mixed. I didn't expect an applause, 100% applause. We started with this open letter from to the president, and I mentioned in that letter, if I'd had a chance to speak with him, perhaps quite possibly, I wouldn't have had to publish it. I didn't say I turned down, like some media said. They said I turned down the offer to sit with the president. It was never offered. So there was no way I could have said no. If the president or someone close to him says, sit with the president, I would have said. And perhaps some of the things that have come out in that letter may not have been made public. I really wish I've had an engagement that would have allowed me to say, I would have said the same things I said, but maybe not in the public manner that we did. So I don't expect that everything I've said there, which is a critique of the administration, its vision, its structure, its performance, and the failures to prioritize certain things like the security and poverty alleviation and the unity of the country. I don't expect that the administration will lay red carpet for my comments. 2 days ago, I was asked again whether I had an advice for former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, because some people were imputing the motive behind my call for President Tinubu not to run. In fact, because I have a presence in social media, I saw comments like, oh, he's an agent. Tinubu released him to come and dissuade Atiku from running. He's an agent. So I said, actually, I was addressing the Tinubu factor. But if I had a chance to sit with Vice President Atiku, who I hold in very high esteem, I respect immensely, I would have said the same thing. I think it's time for him to step aside. He's done a great job as a Democrat. He has remained steadfast. He has shown faith in the democratic process. But there's always a time when you should quit. And it is time. And if he really wants to put a stamp on everything he has done, this is the time for him to yield the ground.
Doctor, you're saying two of the arguably most experienced political figures in the country today should step aside from contesting in 2027. Are you discounting how experience is needed to course correct the ship that is Nigeria?
Experience doesn't fall from the ground. When they started, they didn't start from much experience. They acquired this experience. Both of them were experienced in opposition politics. And when Tinubu said, Emilio Kong, it's my turn, he was stating the fact. He had maybe engineered the emergence of many, or submitted his platform, or donated his platform to many other people. And he finally says, look, this time it's me. Vice President Atiku Abubakar was vice president and a presidential candidate, I think three or four times. So what experience are you going to bring into being president? One has been a facilitator of a governor for 8 years, then a facilitator for other people to become president. The other one has been a vice president, and then a serial presidential candidate. So what experience are we talking about? If you say new people or younger people in politics or outside it shouldn't be given a chance, what happens when these two guys aren't around for one reason or the other? Does the country fold up? Do we just go, we break up? Why? It's one of those things that are difficult to say, but necessary to say. That there ought to be a generational shift in Nigerian politics. And believe me, it's not just going to be a small shift, it's going to be a seismic shift. Hopefully, the younger generation will bring on board a new vision, new energy, new focus, and quite possibly just a desire to be challenged. We have two people. One is a president. He doesn't have much to prove anymore. He's been a president. He's been a president for the last 2 years. His scorecard is not very impressive.
Isn't that all the more reason for him to see it through? Because he apparently has unfinished business?
I didn't say he shouldn't see it through. I said see your first 4 years. See this term through, but use it to govern. There are a number of key issues: the security of the country, the economy of the country, our unity as a people. Address those for the rest of the next 2 years and don't run again. That doesn't mean he shouldn't see it through.
Is that what's best for you, or what's best for him and for the country?
Well, for me, I'm just making a comment as a Nigerian. I don't get anything.
But you think that's what's best for the country if the president should decide to step aside?
Absolutely. I think it's best for him and best for the country.
What happens to his legacy? I mean, look at the economic nightmare that Nigerians are experiencing. I suppose his motivation would be to fix the problem so that he would leave a good legacy.
So he hasn't done a fantastic job so far. You don't have any guarantee that with all the way he's going to achieve a lot more than he has done. So if he re-energizes and prioritize just 3 or 4 things, you have to find a way to deal with security. This is an absolute requirement for this country. Everybody in this country can feel the impact of insecurity on ordinary lives, on the economy, on everything. Then you have to deal with the economy. There's a policy out there, are bits and pieces of a policy. You need to literally clean the table, bring 4 or 5 issues, prioritize them in terms of funding, in terms of attention to policy, and focus on them. Take these achievements to the 2027 elections, but take along also a team of younger people, who can then inherit this fantastic achievement or an attempt to refix the country. Take it there. Retire as a one-term president because you wanted it that way, as a man who gave the country a new lease of life, to start afresh. You've
taken 2 of 4 individuals who were the front runners in the 2023 elections out of the conversation. What about Rabi Musa Kwankwaso and Peter Obi?
I think, look, I've had an occasion where somebody said to me, you want everybody? I would say yes.
You want all of them to step aside?
Yeah. Well, look, what you said, Kwankwaso and Peter Obi. As presidents of this country, I would say don't try it. I really don't see, the point really is not about the individual. It's that this country, this particular generation, has played itself out. It really has nothing to offer this country. We're going to go through the same type of politics again, the bitterness, the winner takes all thing, it has to be me at all costs. And then when you get to power, you don't have the energy, the strength and the courage to actually tackle the country. So long as it's one of these guys, the rest will not step down. This is a simple truth. I don't expect them to go into a room and say, let's all step down for Nigeria. I'm not sure that their levels of patriotism is that high for all of them to agree. The point I'm making is that the nation needs a new lease of life. And it's up to them. They can decide whether my advice is crazy, whether it's like some people think it's a ploy to get one of them, to give one of them an advantage or the other one. It isn't. It's sincerely a serious opinion, is serious advice arising from my observation of where the country is. I don't see Nigeria with a bright future under these tired and elderly politicians who have spent the last 20, 30 years just simply managing power in one. You
don't feel like you're brushing all of them, painting all of them with the same brush? One would say the antecedents vary depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah, and in fairness to them, somebody who has become president, you can't be compared with somebody who has become a governor, who was a governor for 8 years and a minister. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking. The point I'm making is much deeper than just these 4, 5, 6 individuals. I'm saying Nigeria needs a lot of things. The most important thing is a different set of people with a different kind of quality and a vision that should come in and take over its affairs and try and fix it, because the future belongs to them and their children. Right. But this tendency to say, it has to be this person because he had made an effort and made an effort and made an effort. It must be him. It must be him. I mean, look, President Tinubu, Vice President Atiku Abubakar and I are Muslims. We know. When we pray, we say to Allah, give us that which is best for us. If He doesn't give it to you, that's what is best for you. If you don't get it, you say, Alhamdulillah, He didn't give it to you. You asked Him to give you what is best for you. He's better at making choices for you. But there's not much room for God in the way we do our politics. If you've made an effort, and you made an effort, and you made an effort. And when you talk about President Tinubu, he's been great. He's been part of the political DNA of this country for the last 40, 50 years. He's done a lot. So if he retires at the end of first term, what's the big deal? Nigerians make this big issue about, he must do his 8 years. Who told them that we give 8 years? The Constitution says you'll be president for 4 years and then you will submit yourself for another 8 years. But when you hear people talking, they'll say, he must do his 8 years or he must do his 8 years. There's not such thing as 8 years. Nigerians have to vote for you. They have to vote for you back. And some people who comment from the southern part of the country say, the man is just playing wayo. He doesn't want the president to have his full 8 years. The president doesn't have 8 years. President Umar Yar'Adua died after 2 years in power. That was God's will.
Well, Doctor, there was a bigger argument to that 8 years thing, is that the South deserves 8 years. Again, and if he's the major candidate from the South in 2027, the argument is that he deserves to go another term.
I'm aware of that, and that is one of the most destructive things we've done. One of the most destructive things we have built into this country is this nonsense that once you're a president, you must serve for 2 terms. Who said that? When I was in the Northern Elders Forum in 2019, realized that President Buhari was bad news for this country. He wasn't performing. He was not willing to fix this country. We rallied other groups in the country. We met here in Abuja and we told the nation, don't trust President Buhari with another 8 years, or another 4 years. He will wreck this country. And we were right. Ohanize, Afenifere, Northern Elders Forum, I think about 4 or 5 groups met here in Abuja here. And publicly, we said Buhari should not be given a second term. But now you hear things like, oh, he must do his 8 years. Who gave him 8 years?
What about the South doing their 8 years?
But the South doesn't have 8 years, for goodness sake.
You don't believe in power rotation?
I am talking about what the Constitution says. And we have taken a very, very crude negative politics and we put it on the Constitution. Everyone said, oh, the South must have its own 8 years. After all, Buhari had his own 8 years. Where is this thing coming from? This is some of this rubbish that is poisoning the politics. What if you can't perform? What if you can't function? What if for one reason or the other, you have health issues, you have age issues, whatever, must you remain president for 8 years simply because you come from one part of the country? This is the kind of thinking that keeps us declining permanently.
And Doctor, what do you then say to people who, if they hear this argument from you, that it's about leadership, it's about what the country needs, regardless of where the person comes from, say that this again proves the North's affinity to power, this born to rule mentality, that the North doesn't want to stay away from power, even if it means 2 years?
I've never said the next president after President Tinubu in 2027 should be a Northerner. I will never say that.
But some would say if you're dismissing a Southern presidency in 2027 means that it should be open for everybody.
I'm dismissing this notion of 8 years for every president. That's nonsensical and damaging to the country's democracy. It's damaging. And I would never say if President Tinubu steps down, the next president must come from the North. I would never say that. Yeah. We did that in 2023, maybe 2019, but quite possibly. But I told you in 2019 when we said don't elect Buhari again for another time. We didn't also say, but please Nigerians, don't vote for Buhari, but vote for another Northerner. We didn't. The issue about this 8 years thing and the Northern thing and the Southern thing is destroying our democracy. It has become an all-comers job just depending on where you come from. And a nation of 240 million people has no business confining the rest of the country to spectators, to being spectators and voters, while a tiny part or another part of the country now has to say, it's our turn to produce the presidency. The Constitution doesn't say you should do that. This Constitution is explicit. Everything you do in governance must be inclusive. That's good enough.
All right. Okay. Let's go back a little bit to re-examine your fallout with the administration and what happened. I just want to take a quick look at your post back in 2023 when you accepted this particular offer. You spoke with some optimism about what this call to duty means for you and why you're willing to serve in the administration, not just to sit on the sideline. What happened between that time to now where you are no longer with the administration? You talk about access. Has that always been the case? Have you always lacked access to the president? Or was this something that happened somewhere down the line?
Nothing happened. And that's a simple truth. I was supposed to have worked hard to support President Tinubu and the Vice President Kashim Shettima through him. And I didn't find my services being utilized. And I got tired of sitting on my hands and I walked out. Didn't fight. We didn't fight. We didn't quarrel. I took a decision that I would move somewhere else where my attention and my energy is needed.
So over the course of 1 year plus, close to 2 years,
yeah,
you didn't have to advise on anything?
Well, I suppose I didn't advise on anything that had substance. We didn't. Security, President Tinubu inherited a horrible, horrible security situation in the country. It wasn't my job to advise him on it. But if I'm a political advisor on political matters, and you bring issues on the table to do with security and economy and governance issues, somewhere along the line there will be something that I would be involved in.
And is your case peculiar, or do you get a sense that all advisors are not playing any significant role in this administration?
I don't want to speak for anybody else, but what I can tell you is that being an advisor, you go in there with your eyes open. They said advise. That means you wait until they say come and advise. Now you need to tolerate that. And this is why one of the reasons why I stayed for so long. I would have walked out 3 months later, 3 months after I got there, if I had realized that there was nothing really to do. So you wait until your advice is sought, and you shouldn't really lose sleep over whether your advice should be taken or not. That's one of the unwritten rules about being an advisor. But when they neither seek for your advice, nor create an environment that makes you feel as if you're part of the decision-making process, you have to ask what you're doing there. And if you're not happy with being there, then you really have no business being there. I'm only speaking for myself. There are other advisors there. I don't even want to speculate about what their position is. I took a decision for myself, and I think it's the right decision I took.
Some have read, meaning into some of the explanations that you've given following your resignation to mean that the president is isolated, cocooned, or even to suggest that we're seeing history repeat itself when the famous word cabal was used to describe the Buhari administration or the presidency at that time.
I didn't use that word.
Yeah. So is there a similarity to that? Is the president that inaccessible? Or did you not just try hard enough?
It wasn't for me. To be honest with you, there was no way I could have just walked in to see the president. And it wasn't really a big deal. It appears perhaps in my letter, people thought when I said I didn't own, perhaps it might have been in one or two of the interviews, as if I went to the villa to sit down and have tea with the president. I wasn't. My job was to work. And if there's no work to do, there was no point singing around and collecting salaries. When I used the word isolated, I was talking in general terms. Even though I am not directly involved in advising the president, I am also, without being immodest, I'm quite a good observer of governance. I've had an extensive exposure in the public service, at the political level, and then I teach politics too. So I can tell an administration which is isolated and insular. And I use those words very carefully. They're not nice, but I think they correctly describe the administration we're dealing with.
And in talking about, why you're speaking out on some of these developments, some have accused you of demarketing the administration by microdosing, especially the North, with some of the rhetorics that you have expressed about the North being sidelined, the North will speak, and so on and so forth. Do you understand where that frustration is coming from when people say that you are demarketing an administration that until recently you have been a part of?
I couldn't demarcate, I couldn't say anything while I worked for the administration. Certainly not in public. It's a rule. You can't either market or demarcate an administration in which you are a part. You can't do that. People hear of me now because I've walked out, and I can finally say my opinion. This is my country too. The fact that I work for this administration doesn't mean I shouldn't say what is wrong with it or what is being done right. And I want it to work.
You still have sympathy for the administration?
Yes, absolutely. And like I said, I want the next 2 years to be dramatic. I want them to be impactful. I want President Tinubu to re-energize a sense of urgency and a focus in his administration. Either he takes that improved scorecard to the elections in 2027 and say to Nigerians, hey, look, I've done a lot better than I did in my first 2 years. I would like to see that. This is, nobody takes pleasure, perhaps some of his opponents do, I'm not one of them. Nobody takes pleasure in criticizing a presidency by saying it's not working. if you're patriotic. But then also, it's not a patriotic thing to do, to just simply sit and keep quiet and say, "Wow, if I say anything now, they will say I was in the administration, I'm demarketing it." Regarding the northern thing, it's a fact. The north is faring a lot worse than other parts of the country. Part of it is historical. This is the way Buhari left us. And there's nothing really specific that the president has done to dramatically alter the conditions under which people in the north live. Their security is not better, their economy is not better, the relationship between northerners and the rest of the country is not better. And it is his job to fix the country politically, to improve our cohesion, our unity, the harmony, the way we work and live with each other. It is the job of the president.
But Doctor, as you know, from your experience, progress sometimes is a very slow process.
Yeah.
Do you expect those quick turnarounds to happen in less than 2 years? Because some say northern elites like you have been unfair in their judgment of the Tinubu performance, while admitting that he inherited a mess.
Yes. Let me remind you, this is the same president who on the first day, his first speech, said, "I'm removing subsidy." And everybody sat up and said, "What does that mean?" Said, "Oh, this is the most profound policy statement made. And if he's going to run through with it, he had better be ready, because that was a major, major policy step." He didn't follow through. If you were going to remove subsidy in 2023, you needed to have prepared a number of policy. The policy context must be robust, must be comprehensive, it must be flexible, it must take cognizance of all the implications. It will provide, it will create hardship for a lot of Nigerians, but we will do this and we will do that. This is the way in which we intend to go, and these are the things that we have to do better. Managing the finances of the country, paying very close attention to inflation, addressing poverty. What do you do with people who would be whose poverty will be deepened by this policy? All those things need to be done. You don't just wake up and say, "I have an inspiration to do something," and you do that. This is a country, not even in your household. You don't wake up and say, "From tomorrow, nobody eats 3 times a day. We will eat twice a day," because we're running into, and if you can't feed everybody 3 times a day, you don't, it almost smacks of some level of arbitrariness, and you don't govern with arbitrariness. It's not a very good way to run a country which is already, like I said, imperiled by your predecessor.
You also, alluded to how the administration is painting a different picture from the realities on ground. Vis-a-vis the economic hardships and everything else that Nigerians have been dealing with. What is your sense of how the government interprets what is actually happening? Is it blind to the feedback, or is there no feedback mechanism?
To be honest with you, the point I have made consistently is when they give you statistics and figures and percentages and they throw these economic indices at your face, and then at the back of your mind, you're remembering, you're looking, you know that this is a country which is really mired in extreme hardship and difficulties. Economically, there are a lot of millions, hundreds of millions of people are finding it very difficult to eat, pay school fees, pay rent, to go in a transport and go and look for things to do. The security situation is also very, very bad and is spreading. So when you hear people say, when you hear the government say, we're improving or we're almost doing that, you have to ask, are we and you, government, are we living in the same country? And I'm not the only one. Governors, especially in the northern part of the country, a few of them have spoken out. And directly or indirectly, they are saying, look, things are really bad. If I was advising any, maybe some of the best advice I would give, I had to give publicly, I would say to President Tinubu, if he wants to run, watch the North. Watch the North. There is a lot of anger. It's not just the North, but in the North, there's a lot of anger. People feel alienated, they feel abandoned. Now, whether it is correct or not is not the issue. A politician should be sensitive to the way the population feels. And we've seen situations where on the eve of elections, you see wholesale defections. People say, no, 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 no. And politicians have a very sensitive antenna. You don't rule out the possibility that a large number of governors, even APC governors, don't worry about all this stampede of them coming into the party now. You just wait for 9 months and 1 year before the elections and see whether those northern politicians are going to listen to their people. If they
You're predicting a sea change?
Well, I think that we will see a lot of resistance against politicians who will go back to the people and say, elect me again on the platform of the ruling party.
The president earlier in the day just arrived Katsina for a state visit. You see the pictures, you see how the welcome party is suggestive that the president still has some support, significant support. National chairman of the APC speak about the president's growing popularity in the north, and then people like you obviously counter by saying that, listen, the people will end up eventually influencing their elites to consider the realities on ground. How much work does the president have to do to regain whatever support he had in 2023 and to perhaps even consider consolidating on it? Because we had a conversation yesterday with Dr. Usman Bagaji, who said the president, if he doesn't take time, would regret treating the North this way. Is there a chance that there is perception, going at it with the reality on ground? Because the signals are quite mixed.
Well, either President Tinubu and his chairman, the chairman of his party, are right, or President Dr. Bogaji and I are right. What I'm telling you, both Dr. Bogaji and I attended a meeting 2 days ago in Kaduna. Elite, northern elite, substantially opinion molders, people who feel they have a stake in the position in the north, and the mood in that room was one of the serious anger and dejection. Look, if you want to get 1 million people to welcome President Tinubu, it's not difficult to do. Just pay them. They will do that. Or any president anywhere in this country. That's how we reduce people. They are a crowd. When it is election time, that's when you remember people. They become voters. And northerners are being turned into either crowds or voters, nothing else. So having 10,000 people to receive him, or everybody turning up in Katsina to receive the president, is not a yardstick. And Tinubu, I think, is too much of a sophisticated politician to be fooled into thinking that he doesn't have a problem in the north.
You think the president has a northern problem? He has a northern political problem?
He has a problem with the north, but he has a problem with everybody. He has a problem in the southeast. There's absolutely no impact. Nobody is making an effort to fix the fundamentals in the southeast. None. You have a very tiny percentage of its political elite with the government. The rest of the population doesn't feel as if they are part of this country. And they are being pushed daily by sundry groups and sentiments about the southeast must be. Who is trying to bring in the southeast back into the mainstream of Nigeria? They are Nigerians, The only place where you can relax and do your business is outside the southeast. That economy is crumbling. And it's the job of the government to fix it. And the southeast, the south also, there are massive problems there. So, and again, people don't think it is the job of the president. I'm afraid it is. Your job is to keep this country together, united. And there are a number of incidents that happened in the last few weeks in the north, or affecting northerners, where a lot of passion has been raised. people just don't feel that the government cares. Now, it is not, I'm not trying to tear this administration down. I'm doing it a favor. I hope they would listen. They will go back to the north in a year's time, or in a year and a half's time, and say, renew our mandate. We've seen this happen before, and we saw Northerners turning their back against that kind of administration. And so it's nothing new. So I wouldn't put too much store in what his chairman is saying. That's what he's supposed to say.
In the comment sections, whenever we have conversations like this, people always say, listen, the North is not a monolith. When Dr. Hakeem says, oh, the North will do this, he's presuming to have the ears of everybody in the North. That also there is a growing phenomenon that looks like the Northern elites are becoming more disconnected with the people, with the everyday Northerners from different religious backgrounds and ethnic affiliations and things like that. Do you think there's an argument to be made there that the Northern elites are disconnected?
There are different types of elite. The political elite is disconnected. I'm talking about governors, substantially, our representatives, politicians, state houses of assembly, local governments, our representatives in Abuja, substantially. There are quite a few, I am sure, who just cannot go home now. And it will get worse. There is another set of elite who are not holding political appointments, but are important in terms of determining political views and mobilizing support, or its opposite. So let's start with the first. When I speak in this tone, I'm expressing a personal opinion. I tell people I never speak for. Even when I spoke for the Northern Elders Forum, I spoke for one organization. It's natural. People say, "Who is this? The healthy, the sea thinking is he? This man talks as if he's north, and there's a north of the Christians, the north of the House of Fulani, the north of yes. The north has always been plural, but there have been times when the north actually acted and behaved as one region. And right now, the objective conditions under which they live are literally making Northerners to think alike. Everybody is insecure. Everybody is desperately poor, except for their politicians. Everybody in the North. And then this idea of being abandoned is pervasive and is spreading. Now, politicians in Abuja don't want to hear that. It's up to them. The bottom line is, like I said, there is a day of reckoning. If people feel, no, our own people are not part of this thing, we can also ask them, who are you speaking for? Which Northern are you speaking for? Certainly, I expect that religion, which was prominent, as you know very well, in 2023, and then a major determining element, is going to be less influential in 2027 because I think the religious people burnt their fingers, particularly on the basis of the Muslim ticket, and that we are likely to see less visibility of religion in that, and that is not good for this administration, because this is an administration that came to power largely by the exploitation of religious divide. So that's going to be a problem for them. So what else are they going to go up and get? If you get Northerners to unite, and like Northerners did in 2012, 13, 14, up to the 15, because of the onslaught, Boko Haram onslaught, the poverty, the corruption under Jonathan administration, we rallied the North. And the North has a body entirely. Every one of the 19 states, President Buhari defeated Jonathan. Every one of them, by wide margins. So wide that President Jonathan conceded in an election that he knew he lost. So don't play with this sentiment that we're just talking about. It is possible to create a one North. And not by deliberately, but if you ignore it or allow problems to become pervasive and deep and cut across everybody. Every Christian is unsafe. Every Muslim is unsafe. Every Christian is poor. Every Muslim is poor. It doesn't matter what language you speak. Poverty is poverty. Fear is fear. Your blood, it bleeds the same way as a Muslim, as a Christian. And there is a region called North, and it is defined by the peculiar problems in the North. We're not the only people who are unsafe, but we feel that you need also to address us in a manner that is consistent with the magnitude of our problems. When you don't do that, we feel, you just don't care how we live.
And you think that's a fair way to assess the president's performance? Even with all the appointments and the responsibility of, say, for instance, insecurity being addressed by people who are primarily Northerners, for instance, who are, say, close to the fire, for instance. You wouldn't say that the president has shown that he's interested in addressing the problem?
I think, again, this is one of these shifting things that I think the government is not paying too close an attention. Nobody is interested now in terms of counting how many Northerners are in this position or how many Southerners are in this position. That game is over. We're not interested in how many Northerners are in the security sector or that. We're not interested. We just want somebody who will fix our security problem. It doesn't matter how many ministers you have in managing the economy or that. We're not interested. We're not interested in where the next president will come from. And I'm talking seriously. You are unlikely to hear the Northerners. You are likely to hear Northerners this time start all this business of it is a Northerners' turn. Even though there will be people who say we don't want to vote for Tinubu, that doesn't mean that they automatically also want to.
And are people wrong to jump to the conclusion that your critical views of the performance of the administration is simply paving the way for a Northern candidate, for like an Atiku Abubakar, for instance, to win the hearts and minds and possibly the votes of people to say, I am the solution?
Vice President Atiku Abubakar's people are saying that I'm campaigning for President Tinubu because I have said even Vice President Atiku Abubakar will do himself a great favor and go down in history as a great statesman if he doesn't run again. So I don't worry about that. You would not hear me say that the North will insist that a Northerner becomes a president after Tinubu's first term. What you hear me say is the advice I've given to the president. Sir, do something that history will remember you by. Not a favor to the Southwest or the North or to Nigeria. Please, look into your party. Find people, someone who has the vision, the energy, the intellect, the understanding of trust them. And you see what would happen. Everybody, all the other parties will fall in line, I assure you. No party would want to now start fielding people in their late 70s and 80s and start saying, go and compete with somebody who is in his 50s and 60s. So we won't do that.
If you have to give us the characteristic of the person you would want to see become the next president, if you have to give us a demography, where does he fit in terms of age, in terms of political exposure, in terms of experience and everything else?
First, it doesn't matter where he comes from. I'm not going to tell you.
Are you saying that because you're from the North? Because people from the South say, listen, it has to be somebody from the South. Your option has to be somebody from the South. You can't say it doesn't matter where he comes from.
It doesn't matter. That's my view. It really doesn't matter. We passed that post. It really doesn't matter. And if anybody starts all this business, no, it's a ploy. And we must do our own 8 years. I would ask them, who gave you 8 years? Read the Constitution.
Unwritten rule.
Yeah, but it's not a rule. And a written rule is not, a Constitution is written. Even UK that they say has no constitution, that actually does have a constitution. So forget this thing. This is, like I said, this is one of the poisonous things that we have introduced into our system. You must complete his. Why don't you remember some things? Jonathan didn't. Jonathan was defeated. Umar Yar'Adua died in power. Where do we get this idea that once you become a president, you must live for 8 years? You must govern for 8 years. Obasanjo did. But even in the case of Obasanjo, and this is really instructive, 8 years wasn't even good enough. According to some people, he tried to recreate another term for himself. So there's nothing sacrosanct. The only thing to fall back on is that we give a president 4 years, at the end of which he comes back to ask for a mandate or to leave if he serves for 8 years. That's basically what it is. So he has to be a Nigerian. He has to have some understanding of where we have come from and where we need to go. He has to be healthy and strong and visionary. He must have a vision that can be shared with us. He has to be a very good team builder. We want him to be the kind of person who will bring in the Southeast and the South and the Northwest and the Northeast. Build a team that is Nigerian. Work for every part of this country. He has to have an idea of where he's going. Look at the children. Look at our children now, 3, 5, 7. Create a Nigeria for them, for when they are 25 and 30 and 35. That's the kind of people we're looking for. Build an excellent team. Don't worry too much about where your ministers come from. If you're going to give a minister of finance a job, you don't necessarily have to pick a politician. Get somebody who really understands the challenging demand of running an economy which is severely depressed. Those are the kind of qualities we look for. And they exist. The problem is that all these people who are now saying, oh, this man is he's playing a trick, they don't want to leave the sea. Unfortunately, some of them also. We keep talking about President Tinubu and Vice President Atiku. They are not the only ones. There's a huge number of people in the National Assembly who have no business being there. They should go. The reason why they don't want to go is simply that a lot of them have cases with AFCC and SCPC. These cases be opened. So it's, I used the term that somebody said was unfair, that all these people running into APC, it has become a refugee camp for people who are running away from, desperately looking for power, just to be part of the governing process, or simply running away from prosecutions.
Some would say that is an indication of a performing political platform that looks viable in 2023. But on that particular, ahead of 2027, on that particular point, I want to know if there's anything that you've seen so far that interests you with the coalition talks, the merger talks. Have you seen anything that suggests that could be an alternative?
No, all I see are politicians maneuvering in a position to capture, to do the same thing they've done over and over and over again, either successfully or unsuccessfully. That's all.
So politically, you're sitting on the fence.
There's nothing. Who, me?
Yeah, you're sitting on the fence.
I've never been an active politician.
Right. In terms of your support, in terms of your body language, are you just, providing commentary, or would you be a part of the change that you're yearning for?
I don't think. If you're talking whether I will be active in partisan politics towards 2023, 27, I honestly don't see myself. And as we speak, I don't see that. I belong to a party. I'm a member of the PRP. It's a party. And I wish all these people looking for spaces in each other's homes would pose, and the few good ones among them should join our party, but I know they won't.
Right, okay. Finally, just before we go, a lot of speculations about the relationship of the president and the vice president. You've dispelled those concerns, but would you be surprised if the president doesn't run with Vice President Kashim Shettima in 2027?
As we speak, I would be, because I don't see any reason why he wouldn't. If he does decide to run, there's no reason why I shouldn't run with Kashmir Shettima. They've bonded. They've come a long way. They won an election together. They've shared 4 years. Kashmir Shettima works very, very hard. He's a very intelligent politician. He has a lot of experience. He can take off a lot of burden off the shoulders of President Tinubu. So I will be surprised. If President Tinubu were to ask me, to be honest with you, I will tell him I think it would be bad politics to drop Shettima if he wants to run. I hope he doesn't.
Is that even a debate at this point? You've seen the posters, you've seen the body language of everybody involved.
I haven't, to be honest. I haven't. Sometimes I dismiss all this business about political parties saying, "Oh, look at us here, look at us here." They are just numbers. These politicians are not going to vote themselves in. The real people who will make the difference in 2027 are the ordinary people who will line up to express to give a verdict on what happened, on how they feel, or how they've lived the last 4 years. This is where we're making a mistake. But Nigerian politics has become all about politicians. They forgetting the voters. 99% of Nigerians are not part of the governance. They are not part of the democratic process.
Right.
Only as voters every 4 years. Otherwise, nobody really cares about them.
Dr. Baba-Ahmed, thank you so much for the analysis. Appreciate you for stopping by tonight. Thank you so much for joining us on Daily Politics.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you most kindly for joining us. Daily Politics returns this weekend, or I beg your pardon, on Monday, live at 8 p.m, exclusive as always on Trust TV. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Thank you for your time and good evening.